Hey, what's up, guys? We're here with, let me show your name. Jeremy Slate. Super excited. I love chatting with people before our lives because then I get a sense of how the interview's going to go. And this is going to be good, guys, because he has a lot to share, a lot of good things to say to you guys that I know will help you. So Jeremy is the founder of Command Your Brand Media. He helps people get booked on podcasts. But more than that, he helps them, share their message properly and actually make an impact with their voice and message. So, dude, before we get into all the awesome questions I have for you to help people out, can you just explain real quick why you're awesome and what you do?
Why I'm awesome? I don't know. I guess because I'm the world's biggest nerd, so I'm always trying to see how we can do something better. I was a ancient history major in school, so it's I'm always trying to see how can we get to the bottom of this? How can we make it better? How can we keep improving it? So for me, I guess I don't know. That's what makes me awesome. But in terms of what we do, I like to say we're not just a podcast booking firm. We're more like a PR firm for the podcast industry because we look at somebody's strategy, coach them through how to be a great guest, locate the right shows, and then actually teach them how do you market this? Because I think so many people just want to stand up in front of the podcast subscribers and just get all their leads, and it's not like that if you get on and you suck.
So can we dive into that just a little bit?
Let's do it, man.
Yeah. So what does that mean? When you guys help them market it after they get on podcasts, what does that process look like?
So in terms of we teach them how to market it. We don't actually do the marketing for them, but one of the things we do when a client comes on board is we take them through a process called story. All the podcasts that you listen to, you'll see people focus on one of those three things. Very few people are going to have two or all three of those together. They may get on and talk about their incredible story for, 40 minutes and that's the end of it. There's, no message, there's no place to go. Or they may get on and just talk about, these three things that they have memorized and they just talk about again and again and again. Or my least favorite is, going to a pitch fest event and this guy just gets on and he's like, all right, so on my YouTube channel, you can find cool. And on my book and on page number of my book and on this part of my website, you can find it. You don't want to listen to that. So what we help people to do first and foremost is line up, how does your personal story, because not your whole personal story is relevant. Part of it is, what's your message? What do you actually want to teach people, whether they buy something from you or not? And where do you want them to go? Give them one place you want them to go. That's something that's going to help them apply what you taught. Don't give them 27 links and your grandmother's mailing address. Don't do that. So when you have all three of those things together, you're going to show up on a show better. So that's part one, because part one is always the appearance. Part two is what you do with it. So we actually give all of our clients a course that teaches them how to do retargeting ads with podcasts, how to repurpose content for blog content, email marketing. We had a client that closed a 10K coaching program by mailing to his own list in a way that we showed him to market a podcast episode he'd done. So you always want to see where can I use this? Because PR, one of the biggest things, you and I were talking about this in the pre-chat, is you don't want to be just effect of the PR, but effective with it. What can you do with it?
Yeah. And I've had some clients do that too, where they'll get on these big shows like Neil Patel or something. And then that's awesome material to make you look awesome, retargeting, et cetera. Not a lot of people do that. They don't think about it. They just want to be just talking and that's it.
Right.
And there was a lot of key points that you had there. For one call to action. People aren't going to take more than one action, and then also I actually learned this from Arnie Giske. He taught me that,
Arnie's a legend.
Yeah. He's your story only matters if it matches their story. So if you're saying parts of your story, if you're talking to a young audience and you're talking about how your mom and you have all these problems with your kids, they're not going to relate to that and they're not going to resonate with it and they're not going to catch along and follow your, the advice you're trying to give through that story. So yeah,
it's transformation, right? It has to be the story of your transformation that matches the transformation that you want the person listening to get through. You don't start at 7 years old. I had my first business because I'm already going as a host, dude, this story is going to be scary long. It's not going to lead to a transformation. That has to be something you can get out in 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah. So dude, with your cool background, really into history, which I am too.
Yeah.
I love watching documentaries of just more ancient, what do they call it? Megalithic structures and stuff. I love that stuff. How did you get into the world of podcasting? How did that transition into that?
So actually, like,
or just was it into PR first and then podcasting was just a medium? Or?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess there's a couple things we'll kind of connect here. So, my undergrad degree is in theology, and Judaism. I'm not Jewish, but I found it interesting. And then I actually studied literature at New College, Oxford, and then I got my master's in ancient history, with kind of like focusing on what's called early Roman Empire propaganda, basically like how the Roman emperor convinced people he was God. I wrote a whole book about that. Wow. Not a very marketable skill, though. You get out of school and there aren't people like lining up for those jobs. But in grad school in like 2007, showing my age here, one of my professors introduced me to a podcast called No Agenda. And basically it's these two guys, John Dvorak, who used to work for PC Mag, and Adam Curry that used to be on MTV, and they just make fun of the news for 3 hours. It's hilarious. So I've listened to this show for a really, really, really long time. And then eventually in 2012, my mom had a really bad stroke when I was teaching high school, and I just wasn't very happy with my job. And that kind of made me look at life differently, like, what the hell am I doing here? And after that, I ended up going through a bunch of different businesses, man, because I like my mom graduated high school. My dad didn't. So it's a very blue collar background. And so entrepreneurship, like I didn't know what that was. So I went through like network marketing, selling products on Amazon, life insurance sales. I did just about everything. And then I actually ended up working at a friend's agency, building websites. I taught myself how to do CSS from watching YouTube videos. So I did that for about a year. And during that time period, I started the Create Your Own Life show, which did very, very, very well. Neil Patel actually wrote about it, that we did 10,000 downloads in our first 30 days. And from there, man, it's been a rocket ride. We've had some incredible guests. We're well over 1 million downloads at this point. And that was actually the thing that led to us, building our agency. And the other half of the story is that my wife's been in PR for 10 years. So we took her experience in PR and my experience as a host, and we built this agency about 3 years ago.
That's freaking awesome. I want to dive a little bit into your podcast now. Firstly, what's up, James? We got some people saying hi. To James Roberts, James Johnson, and Sachin. Give us a hashtag live, guys, if you're on the stream. It helps boost this post so more people could see it. Quick question. What was like your biggest struggle when you got into podcasting, and how did you like overcome it?
Biggest struggle. So I guess to make this a little bit more real, when I started a podcast in the beginning of 2015, and it was the worst thing ever created by a human being. So I quit about 30 days into that, and it's because I had no idea what I was doing. Like the design was bad. I had no miking. I had nothing. It was me talking to my MacBook like I was a life coach. It was horrible. And about 60 days after that, after going through some of JLD's material, going through some other material, like I learned that these things called microphones, and I learned how to use Photoshop, and I did all this different stuff. So when I launched the second time around, I started more professionally. Like I had a calendar link. I had all these things that, have really helped me. And I feel like that's the thing I've continually been dinging into other podcasters is do this as a professional. Like I get it that it's part-time. You have a business, you have whatever else you're doing. But if you want to build something that's going to be long lasting, get great guests and get views, it needs to be done as a professional. So that to me was the biggest learning point is I had no clue what I was doing. Struggled, it fell apart, started a brand new show, and that was the difference.
Yeah, and it's fun. I tell people too, like there's a lot of media platforms out there where you're building a brand and you're putting out content, you're like hosting whatever, like YouTube, Instagram, whatever. But podcasting special in that people won't really, they'll judge you more on your look and how professional you look, because they're not going to see how many subscribers you have, how many listens you're getting. They're going to judge you on how does the show present itself. So it's one of the cool things about podcasting that you could, look awesome from the start. You have, you mentioned in your sheet here, how to create a celebrity in 3 easy steps. I'm curious to know what that is.
Yeah. So this is something I talk about more with podcasting, because I think so here's the interesting thing that people don't get. First and foremost, when you start a podcast, you actually become part of the media, right? Now you have to learn what that means, right? So you can actually use your podcast to get event invites and all sorts of stuff that you don't have to pay for, which is great. But as a podcaster, it's now you have a platform to get attention, right? You can now connect with people that wouldn't spend time with you otherwise. And the thing I've actually done is I've taken things I've done with the podcast in terms of interviews, in terms of people I've spoken to, in terms of events I have, and I've actually used those to get local press. So step one is having a platform. In this case, it's a podcast. Step two is then presenting that to your local media. So I've found people that we had a free weekly paper that went around here, and I live in small town New Jersey where nothing happens. So anything that we ran as a press release, they printed. They have an online version, they have an in-person version. So that was kind of where I started. And then I went out to regional newspapers, I went out to bigger newspapers. And then from there, I was actually able to use that and approach larger level press, because it was interesting, because even though it was local, it was online. So I was getting backlinks and getting attention here as well. So, step one was the platform. Step two was local. Step three was getting it out to other people. And I think that's the total thing that people don't understand. Like, dude, there's so much opportunity with your local media, especially if you're in like me. And I grew up in a small town called Hamburg, New Jersey, that is 5/8 of a mile. Used to have a train station. And the claim to fame was that Babe Ruth used to play golf there in the 1920s. So nothing happens there. So if you actually live in a local community, you have a bigger opportunity than someone that lives in a big city, because you're going to have smaller newspapers where you can write a press release, they get printed. And then as you get more of those, you can use those to get bigger media.
Got that, dude. Okay, cool. I want to go more.
I took a breath in there somewhere, right?
No. This is something that I haven't heard people talk about, and I think it's really. I'm all about arbitrage and doing things that isn't mainstream, but it works very well, and it gets the attention that you deserve. Before I get into that, so you actually write for some big. You're a featured writer for Influensive and Business.com. When did that come? Did that come after your podcast?
Yeah, all that. So anything whatsoever for me came after the podcast.
Okay.
I was Joe Nobody before I started the podcast. Like for me, it took me from this guy that has nothing to, I think I've written 84 articles or something like that since I started. I've been featured in a whole mess of different stuff, been on TV, been on the radio. So it's like all this stuff is because I had a podcast and I learned how to use it. You understand what I'm saying? That's why I keep saying that, don't be effective of the media, be effective with it, because there's so many different things you can do with it.
Okay. So what are some steps people can take today to start, interjecting themselves in local media? Who do they have to reach out to? What do they have to present, et cetera?
So figure out first and foremost, what's different about what you're doing. And you want to use the fact that traditional media doesn't quite understand podcasting yet. So when I got my first 50,000 downloads, which, you've helped people get millions. So you get it, 50,000 isn't that big of a deal, but to the media, that sounds huge. So I wrote a press release to the local paper, hey, I got my first 50,000 downloads. I talked about the show. And I then presented that to a small paper here called the Advertiser News, which goes out once a week in the mail. And then I also looked for other media outlets that were local. So NJ.com, which is a New Jersey website. It owns one of the bigger publications around here called the Bergen Record. So it actually ran in the Bergen Record, which was cool. So, and that Bergen Record piece then got me on TV. So you want to figure out what are your small places you can present. Now, when you go on their website, it's a lot of times not going to be in the top menu bar. It's going to be on the bottom links, because those are the links they don't want you to find. So scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. You're looking for newsroom. You're looking for news tips. You're looking for press releases. Those are three things that are going to get you what you want. And you can usually present an article that you've written yourself as a press release. If you don't know how to write a press release, Google HubSpot press release. And there's a pretty good article by HubSpot on how to write a press release. And that's going to be your first way to get media. And you can do that right now, man. Just figure out something that's different about what you're doing. If you have a big name guest, you can write about it. If you're doing a live interview in person, you can write about it. I did an interview in New York City with James Altucher, and we sold tickets to it. So I wrote about that. There's so many different things that you can do with a podcast and talk about it, right? Because the media, first of all, is interested because it's new media, and they don't quite understand it. So things we do just sound more exciting to them.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how you get in your own bubble and you realize not a lot of people are consuming or in the same space as you. Yeah, dude, guys, you got to do this. I'm actually going to do this. I'm gonna Google.
Well, here's one as well. We have a local, I live in a lake community, so we even have a magazine, right? So they actually came out to my house, photographed me, interviewed me, did all this kind of stuff. There's so and it's a beautiful glossy magazine that I was in. There's so much opportunity if you just think really small to start with.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because I don't think enough local businesses do podcasting for the purpose of connecting with their community, just to have purposeful conversations.
Well, because they're it's not going to drive in leads today. Okay, great. Think bigger, dude.
Yeah. It's and it's weird. Like I have some clients who they've told me like, hey, my sales calls have gotten easier because people are really getting to know, like, and trust me through the podcast. Yep. They're not like, people don't listen to a podcast with their credit card out, like, boom, I'm ready to buy. Yep. They listen to like, just to know you, like you, trust you pretty much. So,
and that's one of the biggest things I tell people about why it's important to get on other people's podcasts is you need to create that know, like, and trust factor. So your sales cycles are going to get shorter. Your Facebook ads are going to convert better, like a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. So I guess we kind of covered it already a little bit. Like, I guess pitching yourself, I would say from what you're saying, let me know if I'm wrong. The most important thing is having a unique differentiation factor angle. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Cool. So how do you feel about podcasting in 2019? Like, what do you see like changing, like the good, the bad, the ugly?
Well, I think I'm going to go back to the one thing that you just said, and that's differentiation. And I've gotten this from one of the top guys in branding that I followed for years and has actually become a mentor to me in the last couple of years. His name's David Breyer. And he's always saying, if you're not differentiating, you're actually going to promote the space you're in, right? Like if your podcast isn't different, you're going to promote podcasting. And at that point, who gives a crap? So the thing that you need to understand is it's not 2012 anymore, man. Like you've got to love what JLD has done with Entrepreneur on Fire, but everybody's trying to continually recreate that formula. And he's established in the space, so that formula continues to work for him, but you can't apply that formula now, right? You can't just interview a bunch of entrepreneurs with no purpose and build a brand off of it. Because people think, all right, I'm going to build the thing, get up my CPM, and I'm going to sell ads. It doesn't work like that. Your podcast actually needs to be different, needs to actually promote your business and drive in leads for your business. You know what I'm saying? It's a vehicle to get more PR because it can help you connect as a person in media. It can help you connect to other people that wouldn't spend the time of day with you. Like Grant Cardone wouldn't have talked to me if I was just some dude. But since I had a podcast and a platform, we can do that. So it's different in the way of you need to know how to use it to feed your business and feed your business's PR plan, rather than just, I'm going to build this show up, get the download numbers up. And you probably hate this question as much as I do. All right, so how do I monetize? If you're asking me that question, you're looking at this totally the wrong way.
Yeah. If you want to monetize, podcasting is not the first step.
Have a product or service.
Yeah, like do something else and then use podcasting as an amplification to make the connections that will, impact your business, your life, etc. Yeah, everything you said is 100% true. I love it. So I explain to people that your podcast is like an asset when you can really be able to build it up. And like that makes the idea of investing in their podcast much more, because like the right conversation could be worth so much to the right person, know?
Well, even from the standpoint of like, let's say your guest has a high ticket offer, right? And it's something you agree with, you can then do a promotional project with that guest and make money off of that. So you would, rather than saying, how am I going to make money off of this? How can I use this to make money?
Yes. Love it. Love it. What's up, Carla? #live. She has an awesome app, by the way. Gotta go. I'll check out the rest of the video later, guys. Sweet. Thanks, man. So dude, I have some rapid fire questions here for you.
All right.
Are you cool with that?
Let's do it, man.
All right, cool. Who is your biggest mentor and what's the number one thing he taught you?
David Breyer, and it's differentiation. Okay. He's always like been dinging that in with me, and he's the only person ever to be on my podcast more than twice. He's been on 5 times because we do these like awesome like jives together. But it's,
how many episodes have you done?
He's done 5 episodes with me, but I've done almost 600 total. So but that's the thing, man. If you are not different, you're gonna get drowned out by the noise, because there's so much noise out there. Like I think a stat they used to give years ago was, people get hit with 5,000 messages a day. It's way more than that now, man. Like any app you're in, there's in-app monetization, there's ads getting hit all the time. So if you are not different, you're gonna lose. If you haven't seen the Aviation Gin commercial with Ryan Reynolds, you want to talk about differentiation, man? That is a great commercial for that. Anyway.
Aviation Gin. Okay, cool. Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Awesome. Yeah, I think of it as like, you're throwing hooks out there, and if you have a bad hook and bad bait, like no one's gonna bite ever. It's like having holes at the bottom of a bucket. People just go in and out. So what is your number one book of all time?
The 10X Rule.
The 10X Rule. Okay.
And that's because I came from somebody that, like I said, was a high school teacher. I have a history background. I was not the most, I guess, out there, like, hey, how you doing person? So I had to learn that I shouldn't cry after the first person said no to me.
Yeah. I love that. Grant's one of my favorite books from Grant actually is Sell or Be Sold.
Yeah.
That book is extremely powerful. I thought it was just going to be like a straight like salesman book, but no, it's just about life. Like
you got to be sold on your business. You got to be sold on what you're doing, man.
Yeah, like, but even like friendships and just talking, like you're selling yourself all the time. I loved it. So the people who work with you and your clients, what do they say about you that is unique and different, that is not like common to everyone else?
I think the main thing is that we're not just booking people on shows. Like I said, we're taking responsibility for coaching them to be a great guest, because that's a huge point, man. People need to feel comfortable and feel good about the shows that are going on, but also that we teach them what to do with content. You know, any client we work with is not going to be somebody that just kind of wants the attention to hit them. They're going to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, dude, we have a request here. Gooston says, Jeremy, please get me on Impulsive, bruh.
What's Impulsive?
It's
Logan Paul's podcast. Logan Paul's podcast. Okay.
Yeah, Gooston's a fan.
Cool.
What do you? So this is my last question, and then we can wrap up with whatever else you want to say. What are you currently obsessed with? It could be anything.
Currently obsessed with. What am I currently obsessed with? I don't know, because I feel like
it could be a new food. It could be it could be literally anything.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm like I feel like the response you always want to give is, well, I'm obsessed with customer success in my business. I don't know, like I don't know. Here's a weird one, man. I am obsessed with football stats. I can tell you what Tom Brady's quarterback rating in like 2007 was. I can tell you players' heights and weights. It's just weird. I love statistics.
Players' heights and weights. Okay. Yeah. Not even like how many touchdowns they have.
Like Brandon Jacobs, 6'4", 275, even though he's been retired for a few years now. He may be fatter at this point. I don't know.
Oh God, yeah. You gotta update your statistics to go and be like, Brandon.
They stop reporting when they retire, man. And then they just beef up.
You should just have a whole statistics like background of like retiree sports. People who retire, like just keeping track of their stats.
That's scary.
Yeah, that's really scary. Dude, so before we wrap up here, is there any last things you want to share to people about everything you talked about?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, I think, and you'll probably agree with me on this. The biggest thing you can do in 2019 is podcasting. And I'll say, if you are looking to build your brand as a guest on Top Rated Podcasts, we actually put together an awesome worksheet for your group here that'll teach you how to locate the right shows, how to write your pitch, and how to get yourself out there. And that's over at commandyourbrand.media/checklist. I know podcasting has changed my life. I want to help other people do that too.
Awesome. Cool. And if you're on the podcast, that'll be in the show notes as well, that link. Cool. And yeah, man, thanks so much for doing this. If you guys find value here and you're on the replay, give me a #replay. And then till next time, peace out, guys.